About a year ago, I started to make a research on internet because I started to think that maybe I'm missing child. I felt in my life that something is wrong here because my mother didn't hug me, didn't say I love you, so it was a little suspicious to me. I started to ask my mother some questions about pictures from being pregnant and some documents like birth certificate. She always changed the subject. Every child in my country, in Poland, should have child health book, and my child health book pages 0 to 6, they're blank. When I started to think that I could be Madeleine, I called to the Polish embassy. I called to English embassy. Nobody listened. I decided to create this Instagram and try to use the power of social media. I really think that I could be Madeleine.
In an era where a single post can spark a global frenzy, Julia Wandelt, a 23-year-old from Wroclaw, Poland, dropped a bombshell she claimed to be linked to the haunting disappearance of Madeleine McCann, the British girl whose 2007 vanishing gripped the world. With eerie physical similarities, eye defects, facial features, and fragmented memories, Julia's story exploded online, igniting fierce debates. But DNA tests, stalking charges, and a troubled psychological past reveal a tangled, controversial saga. Does Julia truly believe she's part of the McCann mystery, or is this a cry born of trauma and a hunger for attention? Her journey intertwines identity, media power, and legal fallout, raising urgent questions about responsibility and mental health. Dive into Julia's odyssey, from childhood doubts to global uproar, to uncover the truth behind her claims and a vital lesson for our digital age. Julia Wandelt's early life in Wroclaw, Poland, set the stage for her later controversial claims, with a seemingly stable upbringing masking deeper tensions that fueled her quest for identity. Born in 2002, Julia grew up in a middle-class family in Wroclaw, a picturesque city in western Poland known for its vibrant culture and historic charm. Her mother, Dorota, ran a trendy clothing boutique, a local favorite where fashion-savvy residents flocked for unique designs. Dorota's entrepreneurial spirit made her a respected figure in the community, often seen mingling at local events. Julia's stepfather, Piotr, worked in finance, providing a steady income that afforded the family a comfortable lifestyle. They lived in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood where neat, modern homes reflected the area's middle-class prosperity. As an only child, Julia was doted on, with family vacations to Poland's Baltic coast and weekend outings to Wrocław's bustling market squares, painting a picture of a close-knit, idyllic life. Yet, beneath this polished surface, Julia's growing sense of disconnection hinted at cracks in the family dynamic. While Dorota and Piotr ensured material comfort, Julia's later claims suggest she felt emotionally adrift, as if she didn't truly belong. The family's active role in community events, from charity fairs to local festivals, contrasted with Julia's internal struggles, which would later manifest in her fixation on her origins. This seemingly perfect upbringing, marked by stability but shadowed by unspoken unease, became the foundation for Julia's dramatic journey, as her doubts about her identity began to take root in adolescence, setting her on a path toward global controversy. Julia Wandelt's school years in Wrocław, Poland, painted a complex picture of a bright yet troubled young girl. Enrolled in prestigious private schools, Julia stood out as an intelligent student, excelling in subjects like literature and history, but her quiet demeanor set her apart. Teachers described her as reserved, often sitting alone during breaks, her nose buried in books rather than joining classmates. By her early teens, 14 years old, signs of rebellion emerged. She began clashing with her parents, Dorota and Piotr, over trivial matters, her arguments laced with a growing sense of unease about her place in the world. Julia's diary entries from this period, later referenced by her family, revealed a recurring theme, a haunting feeling of being out of place, as if her life didn't align with her identity. This sense of detachment deepened as she withdrew from peers, preferring solitude over social events like school dances or group projects. Teachers noted her tendency to avoid sharing personal details, even in class discussions meant to foster openness. These early behaviors, intelligence paired with isolation, rebellion fueled by unspoken doubts, laid the groundwork for Julia's later fixation on her origins. Her struggles in adolescence, marked by emotional distance and a search for meaning, hinted at the psychological complexities that would drive her to make shocking public claims, setting the stage for a saga that captivated the world. Julia Wandelt's belief that she was adopted became a pivotal thread in her story, rooted not in evidence but in a profound sense of not belonging that haunted her from adolescence. By age 14, Julia became consumed by the idea that she wasn't truly Dorota's daughter, a conviction born from an emotional void rather than concrete clues. She spent hours rummaging through family documents, birth certificates, photo albums, medical records, searching for proof of adoption, but found nothing out of the ordinary. Her family insisted she was their biological child, presenting her birth certificate, childhood photos showing her with Dorota as a toddler, and medical records detailing her early years, all confirming her place in the family. Yet, Julia's doubts persisted, fueled by a gut feeling she couldn't shake. She questioned why she felt so disconnected, why her memories of early childhood were foggy, and why she didn't resemble her parents as closely as she thought she should. These suspicions, dismissed by her family as teenage angst, grew into an obsession that shaped her later actions. Dorota and Piotr tried to address her concerns through family talks, but Julia's refusal to accept their assurances deepened the rift. This fixation on being adopted, unsupported by facts but powerful in her mind, became a cornerstone of her narrative. When Julia Wandelt's public claims about her identity erupted, her family in Wroclaw, Poland, was thrust into a painful spotlight, grappling with the fallout of her actions. Through a heartfelt post on the Facebook page of Zaginieni Praz Lady, a Polish missing persons organization, they expressed profound distress over Julia's use of private family documents, her birth certificate and childhood photos. To bolster her sensational assertions online, they described her as stubborn and uncontrollable, traits that surfaced starkly as she refused to engage in meaningful dialogue about her doubts. Dorota, her mother, and stepfather Piotr pleaded for Julia to return home and address her concerns privately, but she remained distant, cutting off communication. The family's statement revealed their anguish, emphasizing that Julia was their biological daughter, supported by irrefutable records. They felt betrayed by her public narrative, which painted them as secretive or untrustworthy. Their plea for understanding from the public underscored the emotional toll of Julia's actions, as they struggled to reconcile their love for her with the chaos she unleashed. This public airing of their pain highlighted the deep rift her obsession with identity had created, setting the stage for her controversial journey. Julia Wandelt's turbulent relationship with her family, particularly her mother, Dorota, became a catalyst for her quest to redefine her identity. Reports indicate that tensions flared in her teenage years, around age 15, when Julia's doubts about her origins intensified. She frequently clashed with Dorota, accusing her of withholding the truth about her birth, despite the family's efforts to provide proof like photos and medical records. These arguments grew heated, with Julia withdrawing into silence or defiance, leaving Dorota heartbroken and frustrated. Piotr, her stepfather, noted her increasing isolation, describing her as emotionally distant and resistant to family bonding efforts, like shared dinners or outings. This rift deepened as Julia's fixation on being adopted consumed her, driving her to seek an alternate narrative for her life. Media reports suggest this discord pushed her toward external validation, as she felt unmoored from her family's assurances. Her refusal to trust Dorota's love and explanations likely amplified her need to craft a new identity, setting her on a path to public controversy that would captivate and divide audiences worldwide. Julia Wandelt's mental health struggles form a critical lens for understanding the motivations behind her controversial claims and erratic behavior. revealing a young woman grappling with inner turmoil. Diagnosed with depression in her early teens, around age 13, Julia exhibited signs of emotional distress that alarmed her family in Wroclaw, Poland. Her mother, Dorota, and stepfather, Piotr, arranged for her to attend therapy sessions, where psychologists noted her intense mood swings and difficulty managing anger. These sessions, initially weekly, aimed to help Julia process her feelings of alienation and disconnection, which she often expressed through outbursts or withdrawal. Therapists described her as introspective, but guarded, reluctant to open up fully, even in a safe clinical setting. By her late teens, Julia's engagement with therapy waned, and as an adult, she outright refused further treatment, a decision that deepened her psychological instability. Family accounts, shared through media, highlight how her untreated depression fueled impulsive behavior, including her fixation on questioning her identity. Her anger issues, often directed at her parents, escalated during arguments about her origins. Reports also hint at potential physical health concerns, like possible cancer, which Julia dismissed, further complicating her emotional landscape. This refusal to seek help, both mental and physical, left her vulnerable to constructing narratives that filled the gaps in her sense of self. Her untreated mental health challenges, marked by depression and emotional volatility, underscoring the profound impact of unaddressed psychological struggles. Julia disclosed to close confidants and later on public platforms that she endured sexual abuse during childhood, an experience she believes left deep scars, manifesting as gaping holes in her early memories. These gaps, particularly around her earliest years, created a fog of confusion, with only vague, disjointed images, like a fleeting recollection of a beach or unfamiliar faces, haunting her. This trauma, compounded by her feelings of estrangement from her family in Wroclaw, Poland, fostered a profound sense of not belonging, as if her life was a puzzle with missing pieces. Psychologists, cited in media reports, suggest that such traumatic experiences can disrupt memory formation, leading individuals to construct alternate narratives to make sense of their pain. Her sense of disconnection from her mother, Dorota, and stepfather, Piotr, intensified this need, pushing her to question her origins obsessively. The emotional weight of her trauma, left unaddressed due to her refusal of ongoing therapy, likely drove her to seek validation through public claims. This unresolved trauma became a catalyst for her dramatic assertions, underscoring how deeply personal wounds can ripple outward, shaping actions that captivate and divide public opinion. Before Julia Wandelt's high-profile assertion tied to the Madeleine McCann case, she exhibited a troubling pattern of linking herself to other missing persons cases, revealing a recurring behavior rooted in her psychological struggles. In her late teens, Julia contacted Zaginieni Prozdlady, a Polish organization dedicated to finding missing individuals, claiming she was Inga Jarek, a German girl who vanished in 2015, and later Acacia Bishop, an American toddler missing since 2003. These claims, made with conviction but lacking any evidence, were swiftly debunked by authorities and the organization. Yet they highlight a consistent tendency in Julia to align herself with high-profile disappearances. Psychologists suggest this behavior may stem from her unresolved trauma and identity confusion, serving as a way to cope with her fractured sense of self. By inserting herself into these cases, Julia may have sought a narrative that gave her life meaning or drew attention to her pain. Her family, distressed by these earlier assertions, noted her fixation on missing person stories, often fueled by hours spent reading news reports or watching documentaries. Though unproven, these claims drew brief local attention in Poland. This pattern of behavior, where Julia repeatedly tied herself to unsolved mysteries, suggests a deeper psychological need to redefine her identity, a need that propelled her into the international spotlight and underscored the complex interplay of trauma and public spectacle in her story. Julia Wandelt's untreated psychological struggles profoundly shaped her controversial actions, as experts suggest her behavior reflects a desperate attempt to make sense of a fractured identity. Psychologists, cited in media reports, explain that individuals with trauma and untreated mental health disorders. For Julia, the lack of consistent therapy after her teenage years left her vulnerable to constructing a false belief about her identity, possibly as a way to cope with the lingering pain of alleged childhood abuse. These narratives, rooted in her sense of disconnection from her Wroclaw family, drove her to make bold public claims, linking herself to high-profile mysteries. Her fixation on being someone else, evident in her assertions about being a missing person, suggests a psychological need to escape her reality. Experts note that such behavior can spiral when untreated, as emotional volatility fuels impulsive decisions, like her social media campaigns and television appearances. Her story illustrates how unaddressed trauma can manifest in dramatic, disruptive ways, drawing attention while masking deeper pain. Concerns about Julia Wandelt's physical and mental health add a complex layer to her story, raising questions about how her condition influenced her controversial claims. Her mother, Dorota, expressed anguish over Julia's dismissal of doctor visits, noting that her physical health could be deteriorating alongside her mental state. This refusal, coupled with her history of untreated depression, suggests a broader pattern of avoiding professional help, which may exacerbate her emotional instability. Her family's pleas for her to seek care went unanswered, deepening their distress and complicating her saga. This interplay of physical and mental health challenges highlights how Julia's refusal to confront her condition fueled her controversial actions, turning personal struggles into a public drama that underscores the urgent need for comprehensive health support. In February 2023, Julia Wandelt ignited a global firestorm by launching the Instagram account I Am Madeleine McCann, thrusting her claim of being linked to the Madeleine McCann disappearance into the spotlight. The 23-year-old from Wroclaw, Poland, posted a series of compelling side-by-side photos, comparing her features to those of the missing British girl. She highlighted striking similarities: a rare coloboma in her right eye, matching facial structure, a distinctive mole, and even the spacing of her teeth. These posts, meticulously crafted to capture attention, went viral, amassing tens of thousands of followers within weeks. Julia shared haunting details about her lack of clear childhood memories, describing only vague, dreamlike images of a beach that she believed tied her to the high-profile case. Her captions, filled with emotional pleas for answers, struck a chord with some who saw her as a potential key to an unsolved mystery, while others dismissed her as an attention seeker. The account became a lightning rod for debate, with comments flooding in, some supportive, others vicious, accusing her of exploiting a family's tragedy. Media outlets, from tabloids to major news networks, amplified her story, fueling its rapid spread. Julia's posts, blending personal vulnerability with bold assertions, tapped into the public's fascination with the case, drawing both sympathy and skepticism. However, the intense backlash, including death threats, forced her to deactivate the account by March 2023, though not before it had sparked a global conversation. Her brief but explosive social media presence highlighted the power of platforms like Instagram to transform personal claims into worldwide controversies, setting the stage for further scrutiny of her motives and mental state. Julia Wandelt's I Am Madeleine McCann Instagram account, launched in February 2023, sparked a firestorm of public reaction, splitting online communities into fervent supporters and fierce critics, and highlighting the volatile power of social media in amplifying unverified claims. Her posts, showcasing eerie physical similarities to Madeleine McCann, drew thousands of followers within days, with some users captivated by the possibility that Julia's claims held truth. Supporters flooded her comment sections with encouragement, urging authorities to investigate her striking resemblances, believing they warranted serious consideration. However, the majority unleashed a torrent of backlash, accusing Julia of exploiting a family's enduring pain for attention. Social media platforms, particularly Instagram and X, buzzed with heated debates, with hashtags like Julia Wandelt and Madeleine McCann trending globally. Critics labeled her posts insensitive, arguing they reopened wounds for the McCann family, who had endured years of public scrutiny. The intensity escalated as Julia received death threats and vitriolic messages, with some users branding her a fraud or delusional. Overwhelmed by the hostility, Julia deactivated her account in March 2023. Just weeks after its creation, those screenshots of her posts continued circulating, fueling tabloid headlines and online forums. This polarized response underscored the double-edged nature of social media, where a single voice can ignite global intrigue, but also provoke vicious backlash, amplifying Julia's claims while exposing her to relentless scrutiny and shaping the chaotic trajectory of her controversial saga. In March 2023, Julia Wandelt stepped onto the global stage by appearing on the Dr. Phil Show, a popular American talk show, to share her belief that she was connected to the Madeleine McCann case, amplifying her claims to a massive audience. During the episode, Julia passionately outlined her evidence, emphasizing her lack of clear childhood memories, vague recollections of a beach, and a persistent feeling of not belonging to her Wroclaw family. She pointed to missing documentation, like an incomplete birth certificate, and her physical similarities to Madeleine, such as the coloboma in her eye, to bolster her story.
I got DM through my Instagram. After I spoke with Julia, I knew I have to fly to Poland.
I thought that you will not come.
It was back 2018 and 19 that I got involved with Madeleine McCann case. I was involved as a psychic police. I believe that she's alive. When I started to get involved with Julia's case, one of the things that I really believe look like actually Madeleine is eyes. I go back again what Madeleine had as a birthmarks. I started to investigate Julia's body to figure it out if she has those birthmarks. And for me, yes, she had. Julia's mom refused to do the DNA test, and she refused to answer any of calls, texts, or our communication. At this moment, I kind of know the truth, but until I get an answer. It's hard to say 100%, but it's also hard to deny it 100%.
Supported by Dr. Fia Johansson, a private investigator and self-proclaimed psychic, Julia presented her case with emotional intensity, captivating viewers, but also raising skepticism. Johansson, who initially championed Julia's cause, helped her navigate media attention, arranging the high-profile appearance to reach millions. However, the show's analytical tone, with Dr. Phil probing the plausibility of her claims, exposed cracks in her narrative, prompting mixed reactions. Some viewers empathized with Julia's evident distress, while others saw her as chasing fame at the expense of a grieving family. Johansson later distanced herself, citing doubts about Julia's story after the episode aired, leaving Julia to face mounting criticism alone. The appearance, broadcast to a global audience, intensified the controversy, cementing Julia's place in the public eye while highlighting the risks of airing unverified claims on a platform as influential as Dr. Phil, further fueling the debate over her motives. In April 2023, Julia Wandelt underwent a DNA test to substantiate her claim of being linked to the Madeleine McCann case, a move that promised clarity but ultimately dismantled her narrative. Conducted by an independent laboratory, the test results revealed that Julia was nearly 100% of Polish descent, with no genetic traces of British or German ancestry, decisively ruling out any biological connection to the McCann family. The findings, widely publicized across major news outlets, were a definitive blow to Julia's assertions, which had relied heavily on physical similarities and vague memories. The laboratory's rigorous methodology, involving mitochondrial DNA analysis, ensured the results' credibility, leaving little room for doubt. Julia had hoped the test would validate her claims, but instead, it exposed them as unfounded, prompting a wave of public and media scrutiny. Supporters who had rallied behind her on social media dwindled, while critics seized the opportunity to denounce her for causing distress to the McCanns. The results, announced in a press release, were met with relief by some, who saw them as closure to a painful distraction, but also sparked discussions about Julia's mental health and motivations. Her refusal to accept the findings, coupled with her continued public statements, kept the controversy alive. though it shifted focus to her psychological state rather than her claims. This pivotal moment, grounded in scientific evidence, marked a turning point in Julia's saga, highlighting the power of DNA to resolve speculation while exposing the complexities of her personal struggles. Following the April 2023 DNA test that debunked her claims of a connection to the Madeleine McCann case, Julia Wandelt issued a lengthy 17-page apology to the McCann family, attempting to quell the storm of controversy she had ignited. Released through Dr. Fia Johansson, her former supporter and private investigator, the statement was a mix of regret and emotional outpouring, with Julia expressing deep remorse for the distress her public assertions caused. She insisted her intentions were never to harm, claiming her actions stemmed from a genuine belief in her alternate identity, driven by personal trauma and memory gaps. Julia detailed her confusion and desperation for answers, hoping to convey sincerity to a wounded family and a skeptical public. However, the apology failed to soften the backlash. Many online critics dismissed it as insincere, accusing her of damage control rather than genuine accountability, while others saw it as a reflection of her psychological struggles. The McCanns, already burdened by years of media scrutiny, reportedly received the apology with silence, unwilling to engage further. Far from closing the chapter, Julia's statement kept her saga in the headlines, fueling debates about her motives and mental health. Undeterred by the 2023 DNA results and public backlash, Julia Wandelt launched a new Instagram account, Am I Julia Wandelt, in 2024, reigniting her quest to redefine her identity and keeping her controversial narrative alive. Unlike her previous I Am Madeleine McCann account, which had exploded with followers, this new platform garnered a smaller, but dedicated audience, drawn to Julia's persistent claims and personal updates. Her posts, blending cryptic hints about her origins with snapshots of daily life, included fresh evidence, like supposed memory fragments and physical comparisons, though less explicit than before. She shared stories of her struggles, from family estrangement to health concerns, framing herself as a seeker of truth. While some followers offered support, seeing her as a victim of trauma, others reignited fierce criticism, accusing her of exploiting a sensitive case for attention. The account, active into 2025, sparked ongoing debates on social media, with comments ranging from empathy to outrage. Julia's refusal to back down, despite scientific evidence and legal troubles, underscored her fixation on an alternate identity, keeping her story in the public eye and highlighting the enduring power of social media to amplify personal crusades, even in the face of widespread skepticism and controversy. In February 2025, Julia Wandelt reignited global controversy by announcing new DNA test results on her Instagram account, Am I Julia Wandelt, claiming they showed a 69.23% match with samples from the Madeleine McCann crime scene, suggesting a biological connection to the McCann family. Analyzed by Dr. Monty Miller, a biochemist with a PhD from Loma Linda University in California, the results allegedly indicated Julia had British and Irish ancestry, contradicting her 2023 DNA test that confirmed 100% Polish heritage. Julia posted excerpts from Miller's email, which stated the match was stronger than expected by chance, and hinted at a near, certain family connection, potentially with Jerry McCann as her biological father. She claimed the analysis involved hair and saliva from the 2007 Praia da Luz crime scene, fueling speculation about her identity. However, the McCanns and Julia's Polish family refused to provide DNA for comparison, and no independent verification corroborated her claims, casting significant doubt on their validity. Julia's posts, blending emotional appeals with selective data, drew a mix of intrigue and skepticism, with some followers urging further investigation, while others dismissed her as a fantasist. Her persistence, despite previous retractions, kept the McCann case in the headlines, but the lack of transparency, such as not releasing full results, intensified scrutiny. The absence of cooperation from authorities, who saw no need to pursue her claims, further undermined her narrative. This bold move, amplified by social media, highlighted Julia's unwavering commitment to her story. But without credible evidence, It risked being seen as another chapter in a saga driven by personal turmoil rather than truth, perpetuating a cycle of controversy and unanswered questions. The 2025 DNA claims by Julia Wandelt, touting a 69.23% match with Madeleine McCann crime scene samples, faced sharp criticism from DNA experts who questioned the scientific rigor and motives behind her assertions. Experts cited in reports argued that Dr. Monty Miller's analysis, conducted at Loma Linda University, fell short of forensic standards, as the origin of the crime scene samples, allegedly hair and saliva, was unclear and lacked chain of custody documentation. A 69.23% match, they noted, is far too low to confirm a parent-child relationship, which typically requires near 99% certainty, especially when compared to Julia's 2023 DNA test confirming her Polish, Lithuanian, and Romanian heritage. Geneticist Susanna, quoted in media, clarified that the percentage likely reflects shared genetic markers common in European populations, not a direct familial link. The absence of McCann family DNA for comparison further weakened the claims, as did the refusal of authorities to engage, citing prior debunking. Critics argued Julia's selective sharing of results, without full disclosure, suggested an attempt to maintain public attention rather than provide credible evidence. Her media representative, Surjit Sinclair, expressed frustration over police inaction, but experts countered that genealogical testing wasn't standard in 2007, making crime scene sample comparisons unreliable. The controversy, amplified by Julia's social media posts, reignited debates about her mental health and the ethics of exploiting a high-profile case. Rather than advancing the McCann investigation, her claims were widely seen as a distraction, underscoring the need for rigorous, transparent science to resolve such sensitive matters, and highlighting how personal narratives can spiral into public spectacles without solid grounding. Julia Wandelt's actions in 2024 escalated from public claims to alarming harassment, targeting the McCann family and intensifying the controversy surrounding her identity assertions. Beginning in January 2024, Julia bombarded Kate, Jerry, and their twins, Sean and Amelie, with relentless messages via phone calls, WhatsApp, Instagram, and voicemails. These communications, often emotionally charged, centered on her persistent belief that she was Madeleine McCann, demanding dialogue and DNA tests to prove her claims. Her messages, described by authorities as incessant and distressing, ranged from pleas for recognition to accusations that the family was hiding the truth. On May 2 and December 7, 2024, Julia took her fixation further, allegedly appearing uninvited at the McCann's home in Rothley, Leicestershire, twice. These visits, during which she reportedly recorded audio, caused significant alarm, disrupting the family's sense of safety and reviving the pain of their daughter's 2007 disappearance. Leicestershire police noted that her actions had a substantial adverse effect, leaving the McCanns shaken and fearful. Julia's behavior, documented in court filings, crossed legal boundaries, meeting the criteria for stalking under the Protection from Harassment Act 1997. Her refusal to cease, despite the family's silence and prior DNA evidence debunking her claims, underscored a troubling obsession, possibly rooted in her untreated mental health issues and past trauma. The public, already divided by her earlier social media campaigns, reacted with renewed outrage, with many condemning her for tormenting a grieving family. These incidents, culminating in her arrest at Bristol Airport in February 2025, marked a critical escalation, transforming Julia's quest for identity into a criminal matter that highlighted the devastating impact of unchecked harassment on victims. Julia Wandelt's relentless harassment in 2024 deepened the anguish of the McCann family, who have endured nearly 2 decades of unresolved grief since Madeleine's 2007 disappearance. These communications, described in court documents as intrusive and psychologically oppressive, reopened old wounds, forcing the family to relive their trauma under public scrutiny. The McCanns, already burdened by years of media frenzy and false leads, were pushed to their emotional limits, with the twins, now young adults, particularly affected by the invasion of their privacy. This unrelenting pressure prompted the family to seek legal protection, filing complaints with Leicestershire police to halt Julia's actions. Their pursuit of restraining orders underscored the profound toll her behavior took, transforming a personal quest for identity into a public assault on a family's fragile peace. On February 21, 2025, Julia Wandelt's campaign of harassment culminated in her arrest at Bristol Airport, England, marking a dramatic escalation from public claims to criminal accountability. Charged with stalking 4 McCann family members, Kate, Jerry, Sean, and Emily, between January 3, 2024 and February 15, 2025, Julia faced allegations of causing serious distress through incessant messages and uninvited visits to their home. Leicestershire police, acting on the family's complaints, cited her actions as meeting the legal threshold for stalking under the Protection from Harassment Act 1997, a serious offense carrying potential imprisonment of up to 7 years. Julia's arrest, widely reported by global media. She was detained pending a preliminary hearing, with prosecutors emphasizing the substantial emotional impact on the victims. Julia, maintaining her innocence, claimed her actions were driven by a quest for truth about her identity. The arrest drew mixed reactions. Some saw it as justice for the McCanns' suffering, while others speculated it reflected Julia's untreated mental health struggles. This high-profile legal action shifted her saga from media spectacle to courtroom drama, underscoring the severe consequences of her behavior. Julia Wandelt's legal troubles reached a critical juncture following her arrest, with her preliminary hearing at Leicester Crown Court scheduled for April 7, 2025, marking a pivotal moment in her controversial saga. At the hearing, Julia, appearing via prison video link from a UK detention facility, gave no indication of her plea, leaving the court in suspense as prosecutors prepared for a complex case. Charged with 4 counts of stalking Kate, Jerry, Sean, and Madeleine McCann, her actions, spanning relentless messages and visits to the family's home, were deemed to cause serious distress under the Protection from Harassment Act 1997. Prosecutors highlighted the case's complexity, driven by its international scope, as Julia, a Polish national, had drawn global attention with her claims of being Madeleine McCann. The intense media scrutiny, fueled by her 2023 Instagram campaign and Dr. Phil appearance, added pressure, with Judge Timothy Spencer KC restricting bail application details to manage publicity. Julia's detention, pending a trial set for October 2025, underscores the gravity of her alleged offenses, which carry a potential 7-year sentence. Her silence in court and ongoing detention reflect a shift from public spectacle to legal accountability, raising questions about her motives and mental health as the case unfolds. The arrest of a 60-year-old woman from Carrow, Cardiff, named Karen Spragg, alongside Julia Wandelт, added a surprising twist to the stalking investigation, suggesting a network of support for Julia's actions. Charged with 1 count of stalking involving serious alarm or distress, Spragg allegedly assisted Julia by providing information or logistical aid, such as facilitating contact with the McCanns or supporting her visits to their Rothley home. Appearing at Leicester Magistrates Court on March 28, 2025, Spragg, dressed in a beige tracksuit, confirmed her identity but did not enter a plea. Released on conditional bail with restrictions against contacting the McCanns or entering Leicestershire, except for court, she is set to appear with Julia at Leicester Crown Court on April 26, 2025. While details of Spragg's role remain unclear, investigators suggest she may have been influenced by Julia's claims, possibly acting out of sympathy or belief in her narrative. Her involvement has sparked speculation about how Julia's story drew others into her orbit, complicating the legal proceedings. Spragg's conditional release contrasts with Julia's detention, highlighting differing levels of alleged culpability as the case heads toward trial, with both women facing serious charges. Julia Wandelt's arrest at Bristol Airport triggered a global media frenzy, transforming her from a curious figure into a polarizing symbol of obsession and legal transgression. British and international outlets, from The Guardian to Global News, splashed headlines branding her the Madeleine McCann imposter. emphasizing her shift from social media claims to criminal charges for stalking the McCann family. Tabloids detailed her relentless messages and home visits, framing her actions as a cruel exploitation of a family's unresolved grief, while some reports, like those in The Independent, called for empathy, suggesting her behavior stemmed from untreated psychological issues, including depression and alleged childhood trauma. Social media platforms buzzed with divided reactions. Some users condemned Julia as a manipulative attention seeker, while others, particularly on Instagram, expressed sympathy, citing her mental health struggles and fixation on identity. The media's focus on her 2023 DNA test failures and Dr. Phil appearance added context, portraying her saga as a cautionary tale of unchecked obsession in the digital age. This intense scrutiny underscored the public's fascination with the McCann case, while highlighting the ethical dilemma of balancing justice with understanding for a troubled individual. Julia Wandelt's history of depression, trauma, and refusal to continue treatment likely contributed to a cognitive distortion that fueled her false belief in being Madeleine McCann, a phenomenon psychologists link to unresolved psychological pain. Diagnosed with depression in her early teens, Julia displayed emotional volatility, with outbursts of anger and periods of withdrawal noted by her family in Wroclaw, Poland. Therapy sessions, which she attended sporadically, aimed to address her sense of alienation, but her decision to abandon treatment in adulthood left her vulnerable to distorted thinking. Psychologists, cited in media analyses, explain that individuals with untreated mental health disorders, particularly those with a history of trauma, may develop delusional narratives to cope with feelings of loss or insecurity. For Julia, this manifested as a conviction that she was not her family's daughter, despite evidence like birth certificates proving otherwise. Her fixation on this belief, reinforced by her refusal to engage with professional help, suggests a possible dissociative disorder, where reality becomes blurred with self-constructed stories. This cognitive spiral, unchecked by therapy, drove her to make public claims that captivated global audiences, from Instagram posts to TV appearances. Her actions, while controversial, reflect a deeper struggle with mental health, highlighting the critical need for sustained intervention to prevent personal crises from escalating into public spectacles that harm others and perpetuate false narratives. Julia Wandelt's allegations of childhood sexual abuse and the resulting memory gaps offer a poignant explanation for her tendency to link herself to the Madeleine McCann case. As trauma often distorts one's sense of identity, Julia disclosed to Confidence and later on the Dr. Phil show that she endured abuse, which she believes left her with fragmented memories, such as vague images of a beach that she tied to Madeleine's disappearance. Psychologists note that severe trauma, particularly in childhood, can disrupt memory formation, creating gaps that the mind may fill with imagined or borrowed narratives. For Julia, these blurry recollections, combined with her feelings of estrangement from her mother, Dorota, and stepfather, Piotr, fueled a belief that she belonged to another family. Her claim of being Madeleine, though debunked by DNA, may have been a subconscious attempt to explain her pain and disconnection, projecting her trauma onto a high-profile case that resonated with her sense of loss. The beach memory, cited as evidence, could be a fabrication or a distorted recollection, a common outcome of trauma where the mind constructs vivid but unreliable images. This coping mechanism, while providing temporary relief, led Julia to make public assertions that caused distress to the McCanns. Her trauma-driven narrative, amplified by media exposure, underscores how unhealed wounds can manifest as dramatic claims, turning personal struggles into a global controversy that demands empathy alongside accountability for the harm caused. Julia Wandelt's high-profile appearances on Dr. Phil and her viral Instagram campaigns suggest a deep-seated desire for public recognition, possibly as a way to fill the emotional void left by her troubled past. Her I Am Madeleine McCann account, launched in February 2023, drew tens of thousands of followers, with posts comparing her features to Madeleine McCann's, signaling a deliberate bid for attention. Media analysts argue that Julia, feeling alienated from her family and community in Wroclaw, may have been swept up in the allure of temporary fame, where likes, shares, and headlines offered validation she craved. Her appearance on Dr. Phil, a platform reaching millions, amplified this pursuit, as she passionately shared her story, backed by Dr. Fia Johansson, to a global audience. The rush of attention, however fleeting, likely reinforced her commitment to her claims, even after DNA evidence debunked them in 2023. Analysts suggest that individuals with low self-worth, like Julia with her history of depression, may seek external affirmation through public platforms, creating a cycle where controversy fuels more visibility. Her persistence with a new Instagram account in 2024, Am I Julia Wandelt, despite backlash, points to this need for recognition. This quest for attention, while human, turned her personal struggle into a public saga, highlighting the seductive yet destructive power of media exposure in amplifying unverified narratives and causing unintended harm. Julia Wandelt's refusal to pursue mental health treatment, combined with potential physical health issues like suspected cancer, likely exacerbated her erratic behavior, anchoring her to a false narrative as a means of self-affirmation. Her family reported that Julia stopped therapy in adulthood, despite a teenage diagnosis of depression and emotional management issues, leaving her mental state unstable. This lack of intervention allowed her fixation on being Madeleine McCann to deepen, as untreated depression can intensify feelings of disconnection and fuel obsessive beliefs. Reports of possible cancer, noted by her family, added another layer of complexity, as Julia's refusal to seek medical evaluation mirrored her rejection of psychological help. Psychologists suggest that fear of a serious illness can heighten emotional distress, prompting individuals to cling to alternate identities as a way to assert control or meaning in their lives. For Julia, this manifested in her relentless pursuit of a connection to the McCann case, from social media campaigns to harassing the family, despite clear evidence against her claims. Her deteriorating health, both mental and physical, likely amplified her need to validate her story, turning it into a shield against personal crises. This interplay of untreated conditions and public actions underscores the tragic consequences of neglecting mental health, transforming Julia's personal turmoil into a global controversy that harmed others and highlighted the urgent need for comprehensive support to prevent such escalations. Julia Wandelt's unwavering belief that she is connected to the Madeleine McCann case may stem from a psychological disorder, amplified by untreated trauma and mental health struggles, creating a compelling but false narrative. Diagnosed with depression as a teenager, Julia's refusal to continue therapy left her vulnerable to cognitive distortions, where reality blends with self-constructed stories. Psychologists, cited in media reports, suggest that individuals with unresolved trauma, like Julia's alleged childhood abuse, may develop delusional beliefs to make sense of their pain. Her fixation on being Madeleine, despite 2023 DNA evidence proving her Polish heritage, points to a possible dissociative disorder, where she genuinely believes in an alternate identity. This belief was reinforced by perceived physical similarities, such as the coloboma in her eye, and vague memories of a beach, which she highlighted on Instagram and Dr. Phil. These elements, though scientifically baseless, felt real to her, driving her to contact the McCanns and pursue public platforms. Her persistence, even after legal consequences, suggests a deeply rooted conviction, not mere deception. This hypothesis, supported by her family's accounts of her emotional volatility, underscores how untreated mental health issues can manifest as dramatic claims, turning personal turmoil into a global spectacle that causes harm while reflecting a cry for help. Another hypothesis posits that Julia Wandelt deliberately crafted her claims to gain attention or potential financial benefits, drawn by the allure of public recognition in a media-saturated world. Her 2023 Instagram account, I Am Madeleine McCann, and appearance on Dr. Phil suggest a calculated bid for visibility, as she shared emotionally charged posts and TV interviews that skyrocketed her following to tens of thousands. Media analysts argue that Julia, feeling alienated from her Wroclaw family, may have craved the validation that fame provides, filling an emotional void left by her troubled past. The rapid growth of her social media presence and global headlines offered a fleeting sense of importance, potentially addictive for someone with low self-worth. However, the lack of clear evidence for financial motives, such as monetized content or direct profit, weakens this angle, as her actions seemed more chaotic than calculated. Her 2024 Instagram account, Am I Julia Wandelt, continued this pattern, albeit with a smaller audience, suggesting a need for attention over material gain. Critics point to her refusal to accept DNA results as evidence of chasing notoriety, but supporters argue her behavior reflects psychological distress rather than deliberate manipulation. This hypothesis, while plausible, remains less convincing without proof of tangible benefits, highlighting the complex interplay of personal need and public spectacle in her story. Julia Wendel's alleged childhood sexual abuse and resulting memory gaps may have led her to mistakenly associate herself with the Madeleine McCann case, as trauma can distort one's sense of identity. Her claims of fragmented memories, such as vague images of a beach mentioned on Dr. Phil, suggest a mind grappling with incomplete recollections. Psychologists note that severe trauma often creates amnesic gaps, prompting individuals to fill these voids with external narratives, especially those as widely publicized as Madeleine's 2007 disappearance. Julia's estrangement from her family, coupled with her belief that she was adopted, likely intensified this confusion, leading her to project her identity onto a high-profile figure. By absorbing details from news reports or documentaries, she may have unconsciously woven them into her own story, believing she was Madeleine despite no evidence. Her fixation on physical similarities, like the coloboma or facial structure, further fueled this misidentification, as trauma survivors sometimes latch onto external cues to explain their pain. This hypothesis explains her persistent claims, even after DNA tests in 2023 and 2025 disproved any link, as a subconscious attempt to resolve her fractured past. Her harassment of the McCanns, though harmful, may reflect this confusion rather than malice, highlighting the tragic impact of unhealed trauma on personal and public levels. The pervasive influence of media coverage on the Madeleine McCann case likely shaped Julia Wendel's perception, blurring the lines between reality and her vulnerable psychological state. Years of exposure to news articles, documentaries, and social media discussions about Madeleine's disappearance saturated public consciousness, particularly in Europe. For Julia, whose mental health struggles and trauma left her susceptible to external narratives, this constant media presence may have unconsciously seeded the idea that she was connected to the case. Her vague memories, like the beach imagery she cited, could have been influenced by widely circulated details of Praia da Luz, where Madeleine vanished. Psychologists suggest that individuals with fragile mental health can internalize high-profile stories, especially those evoking loss or mystery, as a way to process their own unresolved issues. Julia's engagement with platforms like Instagram, where she consumed and shared content about missing persons, likely reinforced this connection, amplifying her belief. Her 2023 and 2024 social media campaigns, fueled by viral attention, reflect how media feedback loops can escalate personal convictions into public spectacles. This hypothesis doesn't absolve her actions but contextualizes them, suggesting that the media's role in keeping the McCann case alive inadvertently provided a canvas for Julia's troubled psyche to project her identity crisis, resulting in a saga that captivated and divided audiences. Julia Wendel's Instagram accounts, I Am Madeleine McCann in 2023 and Am I Julia Wandelt in 2024, showcased the explosive power of social media to amplify unverified claims, turning her personal assertions into a global phenomenon almost overnight. Launched in February 2023, I Am Madeleine McCann gained tens of thousands of followers within weeks, with one post comparing her features to Madeleine McCann's, highlighting a coloboma, facial structure, and moles, garnering over 50,000 likes before its deletion. Her emotionally charged captions, blending pleas for answers with vague memories, tapped into the public's fascination with the McCann case, driving viral engagement. The 2024 account, Am I Julia Wandelt, though smaller in reach, still drew a dedicated following, with posts about her life and new evidence, sustaining interest into 2025. Social media's algorithms, prioritizing sensational content, propelled her story across platforms like Instagram and X, where hashtags like #FafJuliaWendell trended globally. This rapid spread, fueled by likes, shares, and reposts, illustrates how digital platforms can transform a single voice into a worldwide spectacle, regardless of truth. Julia's ability to capture attention, despite later debunking by DNA evidence, underscores social media's role as a double-edged sword, amplifying narratives, but also spreading misinformation, particularly when driven by someone grappling with psychological issues. The public's response to Julia Wendell's claims split sharply, reflecting the divisive nature of social media in shaping perceptions of her story. On Instagram and X, her I Am Madeleine McCann account sparked heated debates, with some users championing her cause, convinced that her physical similarities, like the rare coloboma in her eye, warranted further investigation. Supporters flooded her posts with encouragement, urging authorities to explore her claims, with comments like, "She deserves to be heard," gaining traction. However, the majority unleashed fierce criticism, accusing Julia of exploiting the McCann family's unresolved grief for clout. On X, users branded her a liar or attention seeker, with some posts escalating to death threats, which forced her to deactivate her account in March 2023. The 2024 Am I Julia Wandelt account reignited similar divides, though with less intensity, as loyal followers offered sympathy while detractors continued their vitriol. This polarization, amplified by social media's echo chambers, created a feedback loop where Julia's posts fueled both adoration and hatred. The anonymity of online platforms emboldened harsh critics, while supportive communities validated her narrative, deepening her fixation. This split reaction highlights how social media can magnify unverified claims, turning personal stories into public battlegrounds, with Julia's case becoming a lightning rod for debates about truth, empathy, and the ethics of engaging with sensitive issues online. Julia Wendell's saga underscores the dark side of social media, where unverified claims, especially from someone with psychological struggles, can spiral into harmful consequences for all involved. Her viral posts on I Am Madeleine McCann and Am I Julia Wandelt, while initially drawing curiosity, exacerbated her mental health issues by feeding her fixation on being Madeleine McCann, as public attention reinforced her false narrative. This cycle of validation and backlash deepened her isolation, pushing her toward harassment of the McCanns in 2024, including messages and home visits that caused significant distress. The McCann family, already burdened by nearly 2 decades of grief, faced renewed pain as Julia's claims reopened old wounds, prompting legal action to protect their peace. Social media's role in amplifying her story also harmed the broader discourse, as false leads distracted from legitimate efforts to solve the McCann case. The platform's ability to spread misinformation rapidly, evident in the 50,000 likes on a single post, created a ripple effect, with Julia's narrative overshadowing serious investigations. Her psychological struggles, including untreated depression and alleged trauma, were worsened by the pressure of public scrutiny, leading to her 2025 arrest for stalking. This case illustrates how social media can turn personal delusions into widespread harm, highlighting the need for responsible engagement and mental health support to prevent such fallout. Traditional media outlets, including Dr. Phil, Daily Mail, The Guardian, and Sky News, played a pivotal role in elevating Julia Wendell's story from a social media frenzy to a global narrative, while also intensifying the scrutiny and criticism she faced. Her March 2023 appearance on Dr. Phil, where she presented her evidence, alongside Dr. Fia Johansson, reached millions, lending her claims a veneer of legitimacy that fueled public intrigue. However, the show's analytical tone, questioning her assertions, also sparked skepticism, framing her as a troubled figure rather than a credible claimant. Major outlets like Daily Mail labeled her the Madeleine McCann faker, emphasizing her debunked DNA tests, while The Guardian and Sky News highlighted the distress caused to the McCanns, often portraying Julia as an attention seeker exploiting a tragedy. These reports, while amplifying her story, also cemented a negative public image, with headlines branding her a fraud or delusional. This coverage, blending sensationalism with critique, drove clicks but complicated her narrative, overshadowing her psychological struggles with a narrative of deceit. The media's focus on her 2024 harassment and 2025 arrest further shifted the story toward criminality, underscoring the power of traditional outlets to shape perceptions, often at the expense of nuanced discussions about mental health and the ethics of publicizing unverified claims. Julia Wandelt's journey is a complex tapestry woven from threads of identity doubts, psychological trauma, and the amplifying force of modern media, painting a portrait of a young woman whose personal struggles became a global spectacle. Raised in a middle-class family in Wroclaw, Poland, Julia's early life seemed stable, yet her teenage years were marked by depression, alleged childhood abuse, and a persistent belief she was adopted, setting the stage for her later claims. Her 2023 Instagram campaign under I Am Madeleine McCann, where she compared her features to Madeleine McCann's, catapulted her into the spotlight, drawing tens of thousands of followers, but also fierce backlash for exploiting a family's unresolved grief. Her appearance on Dr. Phil and subsequent harassment of the McCanns in 2024, through relentless messages and uninvited visits, escalated her saga into legal territory, culminating in her February 2025 arrest for stalking at Bristol Airport. DNA tests in 2023 and 2025, showing no biological link to the McCanns, debunked her claims, yet her persistence, fueled by untreated mental health issues, kept the controversy alive. Her 17-page apology in 2023, though heartfelt, failed to quell criticism, and her new 2024 Instagram account, Am I Julia Wandelt, continued to stoke debate. Julia's story, devoid of any connection to the McCann case, caused undeniable pain, particularly to Kate, Jerry, and their twins, who faced renewed trauma. Her actions, likely driven by a mix of trauma, delusion, and a craving for validation, highlight the devastating impact of unaddressed psychological wounds. This saga, amplified by social media's viral reach and traditional media's sensationalism, serves as a stark reminder of how personal crises can spiral into public harm when left unchecked, underscoring the need for empathy and intervention to prevent such tragedies from unfolding. Julia Wandelt's saga offers profound lessons about responsibility, mental health, and the role of digital platforms in shaping modern narratives, urging society to rethink how we engage with sensitive stories. First, social media's ability to amplify unverified claims at breakneck speed, as seen with Julia's viral Instagram posts garnering over 50,000 likes, can cause irreparable harm, particularly in cases tied to unresolved tragedies like the McCanns. This underscores the need for platforms and users to prioritize fact-checking before sharing, as unchecked misinformation can deepen victims' pain and distract from legitimate investigations. Second, Julia's untreated depression and alleged trauma highlight the urgent need for timely mental health support. Her refusal of therapy and medical care, including for possible cancer, exacerbated her fixation on a false identity, suggesting that accessible, compassionate intervention could prevent such escalations. Society must destigmatize mental health care and provide resources to help individuals like Julia navigate their struggles before they harm others. Finally, the polarized public response, ranging from support to death threats, reveals the importance of fostering empathy over judgment online. Rather than vilifying Julia, understanding her psychological struggles could guide more constructive discourse. Media outlets, from Dr. Phil to The Guardian, also bear responsibility for balancing sensationalism with sensitivity, as their coverage often amplified Julia's narrative at the expense of nuance. Building a digital environment that values truth, verification, and compassion over viral spectacle is critical to preventing future tragedies. Julia's story, a cautionary tale of trauma and media, calls for collective action to support the vulnerable and protect those affected by public narratives, ensuring personal pain doesn't become a global crisis.